So PlayStation has launched another exclusive, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and you guys knew that I had to get my hands on this and see exactly what all the hype's about. And that's what this video is about. I'll be reviewing Ratchet and Clank that comes out on the PlayStation 5 only. And one of the biggest questions that I want to answer alongside my thoughts on the game is, do I think this game can only run on the PlayStation 5? But before we get on with the video, definitely hit that like button if you guys enjoy the video. You can always subscribe to the channel for weekly content. And don't forget to go there and follow me at Twitter at Lord Addict IOP. Without any further ado, let's talk about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. What's going on, you guys? Gaming Addict here, coming at you for another video. Today we're going to be talking about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, made by Insomniac and published by Sony, and exactly my thoughts on the subject and whether or not you should go out and buy this game. So let's get on with it. First thing we're going to start with is obviously the graphics. You guys know that I'm not the biggest person in terms of graphics, but I do enjoy a good looking game. And this game doesn't disappoint. For some reason, I think this is the best looking game I've seen on next gen hardware. Just about anything that resolves in graphics, any type of textures, any form of effect, you know, such as flames, anything like that, this game just capitalizes on. And one thing is for sure, Insomniac has shown you that they can take this hardware, and they can take any game for that matter, and always have it looking phenomenal, and I don't think no one can take that from them. The game looks amazing regardless if you're in space or the desert, or you're just cruising around some water levels. I like that they put a lot of different aspects, that you see the scenery in this game, different types of scenery. It's not just one type of scenery, and you can really tell the detail they put into making what this game looks like. Now let's talk about the story. You guys know I don't like ruining or spoiling anything in terms of the story, but we're going to briefly talk about the story. The story in Ratchet and Clank is actually a pretty solid story. Now, is it the best story that you've ever seen? No, but it's definitely nowhere near the worst. I think the biggest compliment I can give the story is how great Insomniac made the pacing of this game. It pretty much went from one event to another event. There wasn't a lot going on in the middle. There wasn't a lot of dry sperries in this. I would consider this pretty much one of the best pacing in games I've played in a good amount of time. I feel like these days developers put so much content into a game that isn't relevant to what's going on in the actual story, that by the time you get to the actual story, you've either stopped caring because the side quests are actually better than the main story of the game. But I can honestly say that there are side quests in this game, and I did a few of them, but you get to a point in this game that you're so involved in what's going on in the story and how everything's popping off, and it's like I said, it goes from one event to another. There's always something that you need to go, and they never really give you too many things that doesn't involve the main story. And I always love when the developers respect my time. Look, we're all busy people. We can't be spending 20 hours in side quests so they can pat the game in general. Did they give you those side quests and let you really experience everything about the world? Yes, but they did not force you to do any of that stuff. So if you want to go ahead and go through there and do the main story and that's all, that's available to you. You don't have to do anything extra, and if you want to just do everything in general, you can do that as well. Now let's talk about the gameplay in this. I did feel like the combat felt a little outdated. It wasn't bad enough to where I didn't feel like playing it, but you could definitely feel that, you know, this kind of gameplay needs to evolve just a little bit. I wouldn't say hugely. Now I want to point out there are new mechanics in this game. They put like stuff like the rifts around the map to where if you want to get to a point on the map quicker, you could always rift to it. Now it doesn't necessarily put you in another dimension. Some rifts are only used for combat purposes, so you can get to another point of the map quicker. Maybe you're getting laced up a little bit and you're starting to take a lot more damage and you're looking around for health. If you see one of those rifts laying around, all you have to do is snatch onto it and go to it. Now I don't necessarily agree on this kind of gameplay mechanic, because I felt like they kind of promoted that when you see these rifts it takes you to another dimension, but I can understand that this did give it a little bit more of a sensation on types of gameplay, and it doesn't necessarily make it bad. It's just something maybe next time when they make the next Ratchet and Clank, look into that a little bit more. I don't think rifts are really going to be in the next Ratchet and Clank, because if you play this game, you can clearly see that this type of gameplay mechanic is probably only going to be in this game. Now let's talk a little bit about the types of gameplay that's in here. Now there's a lot of on-rail systems going on in this game, and For those of you that don't know what an on-rail system is, it's the game is taking you a certain direction and you just have to do certain things in that to go that direction correctly. For instance, sometimes you'll be going up a mountain through rail systems where you have to jump left or right depending on what's coming in the opposite direction. And then there's just sometimes where you have to just ride a certain animal through a terrain that you can't stand in yourself, and you have to go left and right and take certain ramps to avoid holes in the floor. One thing that I really enjoyed that they use these on-rail systems is kind of like mini boss fights or boss fights in general. When you're taking these rails around mountains to avoid incoming damage from the enemy that is trying to attack you, what I like is they took advantage of how gorgeous this game looked and they let you go through the environment and really pick up and kind of take in how good this game looked. Now, as much as I enjoyed playing this game, there are issues that I want to address. When I play games that I'm going to review, normally I keep like a pen nearby with some paper, or I'll write down some of my feedback that I've had on the game on my tablet. Let me tell you guys, I only had two things, and I've already spoke about the first one a little bit. The first one was, you know, the rift system in general, where when you're in battle, you click on it and it snaps you to it. I understand what they were going here, but part of me feels like this was kind of a gimmick, because there will be sometimes I feel like, you know, they're using this mechanic to take away that you just basically jumping, and it wasn't bad. I can't really go in on it too much. I just myself didn't like the way they did it. Now, there are scenarios when you're doing platforming that the rift mechanic in this game works very well, but in terms of combat, and that's where I really want to focus on, I didn't like it in the combat section. I felt like it kind of made the game a little bit slower in a way, but I can't really do enough to where I wouldn't even take points away from it. I'm just giving you guys that particular mechanic in combat I didn't like too much. Now, the biggest thing I have against this game is how they did the female Ratchet in this game. I believe her name is Rivet. Look, I really enjoyed Rivet when it came to the story and the cutscenes and talking to her in general. I felt like they did enough difference in here that she is her own character. That's only really the story-wise in this game. Gameplay, any type of combat, any type of platforming, she is exactly like Ratchet. She has all his weapons, all his features, and I didn't like that. I felt like when it comes to stuff like this, if you're going to make another character, make her unique. Maybe not necessarily give her all the guns, but give her an exclusive gun that only she can have that's built on her character. When you was going from Ratchet to her, it felt way too similar. I felt like when it's platforming scenarios, make the platforming more drawn to her. If you're doing certain platforming on the game, there should have been those moments that I was playing this game that I'm like, I could not have done that with Ratchet. It's a good thing I have her. But for the most part, it's not. Almost everything that's not story-wise is identical to Ratchet. And for the most part, I do feel like she has relevancy in this game as far as her personality when you're actually in the cutscenes and you're really unfolding the story. But everything else, I do feel like they could have done better. Here's an example that I came up with. You know, when we did Donkey Kong, you were playing as the original Kong, and everything of that gameplay mechanic was right, so you would consider that Ratchet. But when they implied Candy Kong, she had the hair, she had the hovering ability, she had different mechanics that made her unique, and I felt like they didn't really try to capitalize on her being its own individual characters. Like I said, when they did certain platforming, I felt like she should have had unique mechanics that helped her do that platforming that Ratchet just simply couldn't do. But regardless, that's literally the only things I could find that was wrong with this game. It's like I said, the story had phenomenal pacing. Maybe the gameplay could have, you know, combat wise just improved a little bit. It's not necessarily anything big where I feel like they had to hugely improve on, but I do feel like they could have, you know, made it a little bit better. I couldn't even really tell you. It's like I said, everything in this game was just about perfect. The only thing I felt like they dropped the ball sincerely is with Rivet herself. Like I told you earlier, I felt like they could have changed her in terms of gameplay, in terms of mechanic wise, doing platforming, but that's all. I feel like this game is a perfect example of showing you what next gen technology can do. This game shows you exactly what games might be able to do in the future on the PlayStation 5. I know one of the biggest questions that a lot of consumers, a lot of PlayStation gamers, and a lot of Xbox gamers have: do people think Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart could run on the PlayStation 4? Is it an overhyped game that was on the PlayStation 4 that they go ahead and made it exclusively for the PS5? And do you think that game could run on the PS4 if they wanted to? I'm gonna be real with you guys. I don't think this game could run on the PlayStation 4. I feel like Insomniac took really good advantage of the SSD, not maybe necessarily the SSD in the PlayStation 5, but the fact that, you know, this is a solid state drive, and I do feel like they took advantage of that drive in general. And there's just certain scenarios in this game that I felt like computing wise the PS4 could never uphold. There's a lot of parts in this game that there's just so much stuff going on at the same time that I feel like the PlayStation 4 just wouldn't be able to do. Now, it's debatable if this could be ran on the Xbox Series S and X. I would say there is a good chance it would, but I'm not a developer. I'm only going off of experiences of playing games in the past and whether or not I think, because of the games that I've played on the PlayStation 4, if what I'm playing on Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart would run on the PS4. And it's like I said, I just don't think it can. I might be wrong. There might be some kind of things they can do in the background to make it work more. Maybe take some AIs off, maybe, you know, have a loading screen between every rift, but I don't think that's possible. And I think the reason that this game is so good is because of that SSD that lets you load between those realms and those dimensions extremely fast. And I think if you had a loading screen between every rift, it would not be as good as it is now. But the biggest question is, look, these games are not $60 anymore. They're $70, and whether or not I think you should go out and I should buy this for $70. I myself believe this game's worth $70. I really enjoyed playing the majority of it. I took about maybe 15 to 25 hours around there to beat the story, and I feel like the experience I got and how much fun it was playing, I do think it's worth $70. I'm just gonna be real. But at the end of the day, that is up to the viewer, that is up to the consumer. If you feel like spending $70 isn't worth it for these next gen console games, I totally understand. Wait for that sale. But anyway, that's the review, you guys. Like I said, the story was great, the graphics were amazing, and the gameplay was great. This game is definitely worth $70. And until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.